probably what should be the definition of a specialty controller. And when it comes to GameCube style, there's a couple of options out there, but I think this one definitely takes the crown. Nothing quite comes as close to the Wizard 2 as anything else I've seen. And this is not the first time that NYXI, this company, has done a controller like this, but until I had it in my hands, there are many things I did not know this was capable of doing, and we'll cover it all in this video. Now, this was sent for review. That has no impact on my opinions, no money changed hands, and they see the video at the same time as everybody else. Bluetooth controller for Switch, Nintendo, GameCube, Wii, and PC. Some of the specs are Bluetooth 5.0, 400 milliamp hour per side, so a total of approximately 6 to 8 hours per controller. Charging bridge, 225 grams. It has gyro, it has TMR sticks, dual switching triggers, and mechanical micro switch buttons with amiibo reading capabilities. Controller, which I'll set aside for a quick second, and let's look at accessories. We have a manual. It's going to be super important if you buy this that you don't throw this away, because NYXI does not have companion apps. You'll have a bunch of different shortcuts and things you can do. 2 cables, USB-C to USB-A, to charge the controller. And we also have this dongle to be able to plug onto the GameCube, but you also have a USB-C, and this is pretty interesting, the capabilities that it provides. The Warrior, contrary to the Wizard, rather than having Joy-Con style left and right controllers, you have one whole controller as you would a GameCube one. But the Wizard 2 is very much like Joy-Cons. The bridge, very important, this comes included, right? And this will be to charge your controller. So if I was to plug this into my PC, that on its own will not carry data. So it's not as if you can use it as a controller plug like this. However, that does not mean that you can't use it on PC, and we'll definitely get back to that. But yes, this would be a charging bridge. So if you want to play a game while it is charging, you very much can do that thanks to this bridge, so you would have it as a one standalone controller. This is something that the Wizard 1 also has, and so what we'll do right now is cover all the different ways in which the Wizard 2 is different to the Wizard 1, and I'll also bring the Warrior in this conversation. So the first thing is, the Wizard 1 had turbo keys here. This is gone because now these buttons will be able to be used as a turbo keys. They just now made it much more simpler by having one gear button that will take care of all the operations. We no longer have replaceable gates or changeable sticks, contrary to the ability to have a full circle or an 8-way gate on the Wizard and Warrior. Another difference is some of the buttons have changed, but we'll go over that in a second. And if I talk specifically about the Wizard, you no longer have these very different triggers. These feel very much like a GameCube controller one. And you have hair triggers, which was not the case on the Wizard, but it was the case on the Warrior. They don't present it as such, and I would hope that we still have a Warrior down the road, but this is effectively a Warrior and Wizard in one. And the reason being that thanks to this dongle, you can plug this controller as X input or D input to your PC, and yes, you still have detachable Joy-Cons. I can't think of another controller that can do that. When talking buttons, we have mechanical micro switches here, and they feel great. They feel better than both the Wizard and Warrior. The massive improvement is in the D-pad, both versus the Wizard 1 and the Warrior. Recently, I really commended 8BitDo's Ultimate 2 controller for their D-pad. This is essentially what this is. It feels extremely similar to what 8BitDo has, but it's much bigger, it's much wider, so it's actually a very pleasant to use D-pad. The sticks are TMR, so no drift and high reliability. Clickable unlike a original GameCube controller. You do have both L and R extra buttons. A very short travel tactile button. This is where it gets a little confusing because unfortunately I don't have a GameCube or a Wii to test this. But based off of their promotional material, it is supposed to be a dual stage linear trigger. If you remember the GameCube, for example, Smash, or for example, Mario Sunshine, if you would held it just lightly, you were able to move Mario, but if you pushed it all the way, Mario would stand still so that you can aim his nozzle rather than have it Mario move. And when I push down on it, and it's very hard to show, but here it feels as if I'm all the way, but I still have just a little bit of an extra push. So it seems that it has that feature, But because this is not supported in X input, D input, and switch mode, which is all the modes that this controller can have, this is not a feature you're going to be able to experience. And so for that very specific feature, unfortunately, I'm not able to test for you guys. You also have 2 extra buttons that you can map in the back. And if you are to push the air trigger, you have what are very much super short travel mechanical switches. You have the little disconnection part, and much like a Joy-Con, you have SL and SR and the pairing button. So these can operate absolutely as would a Joy-Con. Before we go any further, let me disconnect both of these. All right. They can wake up the Switch. And if we're talking Amiibo, they also have Amiibo readability. It has HD rumble, it has gyro, and when playing Smash, it would be no surprise that it's a great experience and the way that I believe Smash should be played. Alright, let's stay on the task at hand because otherwise I'm going to be playing for a long time. Another question you may ask yourself is, will it work on the Switch 2? The pair can conveniently hold the pairing buttons. There you go. And once you have both paired, you can just use them as you would a controller. And naturally, you can play GameCube games, but you still won't have the dual stage trigger. Very important to keep in mind, as these appear as Joy-Cons and not actual GameCube controllers. But yes, you can absolutely use it on the Switch 2. And if you were to use it on the Switch 2 for Switch 2 games, like the Nintendo's first-party controller, you are getting clickable sticks, you are getting extra buttons. It will appear as 2 Joy-Cons. You get HD rumble, you get gyro. You cannot wake up the Switch 2, you can wake up the Switch 1. And you also don't have Amiibo reading on the Switch 2, but you do have it on the Switch 1. And so while the HD rumble itself is not as strong as what you have on the Switch Pro Controller 2 or the Joy-Cons 2, you still get those nuances that are really nice, and you still have that gyro experience as you can see here, and it's just as reliable as first-party experiences, at least in my testings. If you're buying this hoping to use it on your Switch 2, don't worry, you absolutely can. But the one thing, at least in my opinion, that makes this controller wild is this right here, and what effectively makes the Wizard 2 a fusion of the 2 controllers. So you would be able to plug this right on a GameCube or a Wii, and it'll work as a GameCube controller by plugging this dongle to your PC. And we'll go to the manual to see how we do this. While we're here, there's a couple more things I want to show you. You can do joystick calibration. You also have trigger calibration, 6-axis gyro calibration, your turbo function, button programming. Nintendo Switch is pretty straightforward. So when we're talking connecting to the PC, what you want to do is essentially connect one controller at a time, starting with the right one. So we'll go ahead and hold the home button. And once it starts blinking quickly, we'll go ahead and hold this little button on the dongle. And voila, we are connected, having the same exact feature set, HD rumble. You have the GameCube layout, and then what you can do is go ahead and do the capture button here until it blinks fast. And then you hold this button again. It'll pair up. And all of a sudden, you have a split Xbox controller, which is pretty impressive. Now the SL and SR buttons won't do anything, but as far as everything else goes, it'll operate as you would expect a controller. And if I was to hit the vibration here, you probably hear it. I'm definitely getting that strong, powerful HD vibration. And if you were to connect it to the bridge, you now have one unit, and just like that, you now have an Xbox controller. But if you're to hold minus and plus for a couple of seconds, it'll vibrate, and now you have a Switch Pro controller. You have the gyro supported and Steam input, and if you do it one more time, you'll have a D input mode. And the impressive part is that all that can still be done without even having the controllers connected. I mean, the bridge is only for charging. So you can have a split Xbox 360 controller, much like you would be able to do with the Legion Go detachable controllers. And I can think of another option on the market that can do that. And maybe it's not something that will be interesting or appealing or useful to you in any capacity, but the fact that it can do that and that NYXI managed to bring this whole feature set into detachable Joy-Cons is so amazing. I'm not going to do the whole string of tests that I usually do, so let's just go for that and have a look. Oh, and there's one thing in particular I wanted to make sure to cover because I know that's going to be important. The snapback may be something that turns you off of it. There's very little of it on the right stick. It seems that they have some algorithm at play, but the left stick definitely has it. Also, this controller will remember its previous settings. So if I was connected to the Switch one and I was to reopen it, it would go straight to the Switch one. Now, the last time I connected it was to the PC, so if I just power this controller, it's going to connect on its own. And then if I power the other side, it's going to connect on its own. Pretty much for the same consistent device, you won't have to do the repairing every time. It's just the first time. But if you are to jump from one device to another, you will have to repair it. And if I wanted to aim like that, I absolutely could. That said, it's going to throw me off. So let me go ahead and connect it and make it one controller. And I just want to make something clear. This is not an aiming controller. Okay? I'm not trying to say that it is. I'm not trying to judge it based off of that. I just want to show the sticks because the fact that they're TMR, of course, would have a benefit. But I just think overall, the problem is not the module, which I have no doubt are good quality. The problem is you have this little nub, you have an 8-gate, you have just something that is not tailored for aiming. It's still there, it's still capable of doing it, and you still have the ability to disconnect. So for anything else, say you want to play Dark Souls on your couch and not have your hands keep together, because you want a detachable Xbox controller. There's really nothing else that can do this. Talked about how great the D-pad is. Let me show you what I mean. So yeah, very capable and also very comfortable to use for platformers. And again, like I said, I was not going to do my whole string of tests, and here I am pretty much doing it. What I'm trying to imply here is that it really is a full Xbox controller playing on my PC, and I can still do that by still having the controllers fully detached. And I just think this is so cool. This is such a cool thing to be able to do. Now, of course, because it is the GameCube layout and I haven't used that, I haven't practiced with that or redone my mappings right now, I'm struggling just with my brain trying to wrap my head around what the keys do. But if I was playing a GameCube game on emulator, that's not a problem I would have. And all the same, if I'm trying to play a game where the analogs are important, you'll have that graduality because this time around we do have proper analogs as opposed to just having one button. And when it comes to performance, seeing as the dongle is what we're using and not Bluetooth, we still have blazingly fast pulling rate, as you can see here. So that's pretty solid. Now, as far as the step resolution, we have 0.0005. So this points to being 12-bit resolution sensors. And I'll put the rest of my pulling rate as well as latency on screen. Chances are, if you're looking at this video, it's because you want a controller that is very specifically designed for something. What it is designed for, which is going to be to play your GameCube and Wii, or having that layout on a Switch or Switch 2, there's really nothing better at this point on the readily available market. But the fact that they were able to retain that Joy-Con style and still have it do so much without fuss, without complication, is what just blows my mind, and where I think NYXI absolutely have a home run in their hands. And yeah, it's not cheap, but $89.99. It's definitely not the cheapest controller. I would assume that you can probably find sales from time to time, so keep your eyes peeled if you find that it's too expensive. I think they cut no corners. I think they provide something that is just not easily feasible, and that, I believe, deserves credit. Now, there's other things at the same time that it doesn't really have. You know, it doesn't have Bluetooth, or at least as far as I can tell, it doesn't have Bluetooth for your X input mode for, say, your phone or your PC. So you really have to rely on the dongle to take out this capability out of this controller. For the very few things that it lacks, it more than makes up for in the features that we simply don't see elsewhere. As far as the buttons, the layout, I think they nailed it. And once again, where I believe the Warrior improved on the GameCube original controller, the Wizard 2 improves on the GameCube controller, but also the Warrior. There is not a corner in which I don't see this as an improvement over their previous GameCube style. In that regard, I think mission accomplished. Personally, I like the all-white look. That may not be for everyone. I think it has a striking visual to it. Oh, and by the way, one thing I didn't mention, maybe a big difference versus the original GameCube controllers is that the buttons are not glossy, and they're also not as rounded on the edges, but they're in no way uncomfortable because of that. That's just an observation on my part. It's not your controller for Call of Duty, but if you miss that ergonomic style, and especially if you were considering buying the original GameCube controller, which is a great controller, and look, I have it to attest to that. Knowing what I paid for the GameCube controller, I'd much had it rather at that. And that's what it comes down to. That's where I think the value lies, is that you're just getting a better option overall that will do more. Yeah, I don't think there's much else for me to add to this. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment box, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.